The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Chun pushed the industrial mop across the marble floor of the corporate lobby. 3 in the morning, and the building was his domain. He worked with practiced efficiency, muscle memory, guiding him through the routine he had perfected over 18 months. His phone buzzed against his chest pocket. A text from the recruiter. Interview confirmed for 2 p.m. today. Marcus paused, leaning on the mop handle. This could be it. The chance to climb back up from rock bottom. He thought of Emma, sleeping peacefully in their small apartment. His 8-year-old daughter deserved better than cereal for dinner and hand-me-down clothes. She deserved the stability he once provided when he wore tailored suits instead of blue coveralls. Marcus resumed mopping, each stroke deliberate. The executive suites on the 40th floor still gleamed from his attention. Ironic how he now cleaned the very type of offices where he once made million-dollar decisions. Before we dive into Marcus's journey, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've seen hardworking single parents facing similar challenges in your area. His reflection caught in the polished floor. Tomorrow he would trade these coveralls for his one remaining interview suit. Tomorrow he would try to convince someone that a night janitor could be an executive again. Marcus stood before the bathroom mirror at noon, adjusting his navy tie for the 3rd time. The suit still fit well, a remnant from his former life as vice president of operations at Meridian Industries. The fabric felt foreign now after months of work uniforms. Emma sat on his bed, swinging her legs while she watched him prepare. "You look handsome, Daddy," she said, her gap-toothed smile brightening his nervous energy. He remembered the last time he wore this suit. The day they called him into the conference room and explained that his position was being eliminated. 18 months of unemployment followed, savings dwindling, pride swallowing as he took the janitorial job to keep their small apartment. His phone displayed the company research he had compiled. Tech Vision Solutions, growing software firm, director of operations position. It was 3 levels below where he used to sit, but it was a pathway back to providing for Emma properly. The school would call if anything happened. Mrs. Rodriguez knew about the interview. Everything was planned perfectly. Marcus knelt to Emma's level. "Daddy has an important meeting today. Be good for Mrs. Chun after school." She hugged him tight. "I know you'll do great, Daddy. You're the smartest person I know." Her faith in him was absolute. She had no idea how far they had fallen, how precarious their situation remained. He intended to keep it that way. Marcus's phone rang at 1:15. The school. His stomach dropped as he answered while walking toward the Tech Vision building. "Mr. Chun, this is Mrs. Rodriguez. Emma has a fever and is asking for you. Can you pick her up?" He stood frozen on the sidewalk, suit jacket draped over his arm. The interview was in 40 minutes. "I'll be right there," he said without hesitation. The elementary school was 20 minutes away. He ran 3 blocks to catch a bus, then sprinted from the bus stop to Emma's classroom. She sat in the nurse's office, small and pale, clutching her backpack. "Daddy," she whispered, reaching for him with fevered arms. He scooped her up, feeling her elevated temperature through his dress shirt. The nurse explained the symptoms while he calculated timing in his head. Get her home, give her medicine, then race back downtown. By the time Marcus settled Emma with their elderly neighbor Mrs. Chun and caught another bus, it was 2:20. He burst through Tech Vision's lobby doors, tie askew, hair disheveled from running, sweat visible on his forehead despite the October chill. The receptionist directed him to the 14th floor. Marcus caught his reflection in the elevator mirror. He looked exactly like what Rebecca Torres would see, a desperate man who couldn't even arrive on time. His carefully planned presentation was crumbling before it began. Rebecca Torres looked up from her notes as Marcus entered the conference room. Her eyes immediately cataloged his disheveled appearance, the wrinkled shirt, the slight sheen of perspiration on his forehead. "Mr. Chun," she said coolly, extending a brief handshake. "You're 20 minutes late." "I apologize. There was a family emergency with my daughter," Marcus replied, settling into the chair across from her polished desk. Rebecca's expression remained neutral, but he caught the slight tightening around her eyes. She flipped through his resume with deliberate slowness. "I see you've been out of corporate work for quite some time." What have you been doing to stay current in operations management? Marcus straightened his shoulders. I've been working nights to support my daughter, but I've maintained my industry certifications and kept up with operational trends through online courses. Working nights where exactly? Rebecca asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. Facilities maintenance, he said quietly. A janitor, she clarified, making a note on her pad. And you think that qualifies you to manage a department of 12 people and a $2 million budget? The words stung, but Marcus maintained his composure. My previous experience at Meridian Industries involved managing teams of 40 and budgets exceeding $8 million. The principles of operational efficiency remain the same regardless of the industry. Rebecca's smile was thin and unconvincing. That was almost 2 years ago, Mr. Chun. The questions continued with surgical precision, each one designed to highlight his current circumstances rather than his capabilities. Rebecca Torres leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed as she dissected his employment gap. Tell me about your leadership philosophy, she said, though her tone suggested the answer hardly mattered. Marcus drew on his years of experience. Effective leadership requires understanding each team member's strengths and creating systems that maximize collective productivity while maintaining individual accountability. That sounds very textbook, Rebecca replied dismissively. How do you handle conflict resolution in a fast-paced environment? He provided a detailed example from his Meridian days, describing how he had mediated a dispute between engineering and sales that was costing the company significant revenue. Rebecca barely looked up from her notes. The interview felt like a performance where the audience had already left. Every response met with skepticism, every qualification questioned. Marcus realized she had made her decision before he walked through the door. Well, Mr. Chun, Rebecca said, closing his file with finality. We'll be in touch within a few days. Janet will show you out. The dismissal was clear. Marcus stood, extending his hand once more. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Torres. Her handshake was perfunctory. He followed Janet toward the elevator, his suit jacket feeling heavier with each step. Another door closing, another opportunity lost. Marcus stood by the elevator bank, pressing the down button with more force than necessary. The familiar weight of rejection settled in his chest. He would return to the night shift, to mopping floors and emptying trash bins while Emma slept. His phone buzzed. The caller ID made him pause. James Liu, his former colleague at Meridian Industries. They hadn't spoken in months. Marcus, thank God you answered, James said, his voice tight with stress. We have a massive crisis brewing. The Shanghai facility is completely down. Production stopped, and we're losing $200,000 every hour. Marcus felt the elevator arrive, but didn't step inside. What kind of breakdown? Supply chain nightmare. The new logistics manager implemented changes without understanding our vendor relationships. 3 critical suppliers have suspended shipments over payment disputes that don't actually exist. The system shows them as delinquent, but the invoices were processed correctly. Marcus's mind shifted automatically into executive mode. Are you still using the integrated ERP system we implemented? Yes, but nobody here understands how to trace the payment allocation errors. The CFO is in panic mode. Marcus, I know this is awkward, but you designed this system. Could you walk me through the diagnostic process? The elevator doors closed without him. Marcus found himself moving toward a quiet corner of the lobby, his entire demeanor changing as he accessed knowledge that 18 months of janitorial work couldn't erase. First, access the vendor reconciliation module in the ERP dashboard, Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had built the system from the ground up. Look for batch payment entries from the last 72 hours. Behind him, Rebecca Torres had emerged from her office, ostensibly heading to another meeting. She slowed as she heard Marcus speaking with unmistakable executive confidence. I'm in the system, James replied. I see the batch entries, but there are hundreds of transactions. Filter by supplier classification code. Shanghai vendors will have the SH prefix followed by their risk tier designation. The 3 suspended suppliers should be Tier 1, so look for SHD1 entries. Rebecca paused near the reception desk, pretending to review documents while listening to the conversation. The disheveled man she had just dismissed was speaking with the fluency of someone intimately familiar with complex international operations. "Found them," James said, "but the payment status shows as processed and cleared." "That's the allocation error," Marcus explained patiently. "The payment's processed correctly, but the system isn't updating vendor accounts because of a synchronization lag between the payment module and the vendor database. You need to run a manual reconciliation script." "How do I access that?" James asked, desperation evident in his voice. Marcus walked him through the technical steps with precision, his knowledge spanning both operational strategy and system architecture. Rebecca found herself riveted by his transformation. "The reconciliation is running now," James said, audible relief in his voice. "Marcus, you're saving our entire quarter. The CFO wants to speak with you directly." Marcus heard the phone being passed. A new voice came on the line, crisp and commanding. "This is Patricia Wong, Chief Financial Officer. James tells me you designed our logistics system." "That's correct," Marcus replied. "I was VP of Operations when we implemented the integrated platform 3 years ago." Rebecca Torres moved closer, no longer pretending to read her documents. Other employees had begun to notice the conversation as well. The man they had just dismissed was clearly consulting at an executive level. "Mr. Chun," Patricia continued, "our Shanghai facility represents 40% of our Asian production capacity. If we can't resolve this today, we'll default on 3 major contracts. James says you have a solution. The manual reconciliation will address the immediate payment disputes," Marcus explained, "but you have a systemic issue. The synchronization lag indicates your database servers are overloaded. You need to implement load balancing protocols and possibly upgrade your server architecture." Rebecca watched in amazement as Marcus outlined a comprehensive technical strategy, speaking with authority about million-dollar operational decisions. This was not the desperate janitor who had sat across from her 20 minutes ago. This was someone who belonged in boardrooms, someone who understood global commerce at the highest levels. "We have the Shanghai suppliers on standby," Patricia said. "Can you speak with them directly? Your Mandarin was always excellent." Marcus switched languages seamlessly, his voice taking on the respectful but authoritative tone appropriate for Chinese business culture. Rebecca watched in stunned silence as he conducted trilingual negotiations, moving between English with the Meridian team, Mandarin with the suppliers, and technical explanations that bridged both worlds. The conversation lasted 15 minutes. Marcus explained the payment processing errors to confuse suppliers, assured them of Meridian's financial stability, and negotiated expedited shipping to compensate for the production delays. His command of cultural nuances and technical details was masterful. When he ended the call, a small crowd had gathered in the lobby. Word had spread that someone was handling a major corporate crisis from their reception area. "Production will resume within 2 hours," Marcus announced to James and Patricia, who were still on speakerphone. "The suppliers are satisfied, and shipping will resume immediately. I've sent you the server upgrade specifications via email." "Marcus," Patricia said, her voice filled with gratitude and something else. "Recognition. We owe you considerably for this. Our contracts are safe because of your intervention." Rebecca Torres approached him as he ended the call, her entire demeanor transformed. The condescending interviewer had been replaced by someone who clearly understood she had just witnessed exceptional competence masquerading as ordinary circumstance. The morning sun cast long shadows across the firing range as Corporal Elena Vasquez bent low, her fingers methodically plucking spent brass casings from the red dirt. The metallic clinks echoed softly as each casing dropped into her collection bag, a rhythm that had become as natural as breathing during her months at Fort Braxton. Around her, fellow soldiers lounged against concrete barriers, their voices carrying easily across the range as they bragged about weekend conquests and upcoming leave plans. Their laughter seemed to bounce off the distant target frames, creating a soundtrack of casual confidence that Elena had learned to tune out. She straightened slowly, wiping dust from a particularly tarnished casing before adding it to her collection. The simple act drew snickers from Sergeant Morrison, whose broad frame blocked the sun as he approached. "Your hobby is fascinating, Vasquez," Morrison said, his tone dripping with mock admiration. "Most people come here to shoot. You come here to clean up after real soldiers." Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed similar underestimation in your community. Elena continued her methodical collection, her dark eyes focused on the task at hand. Each piece of brass told a story of missed shots, wasted ammunition, and soldiers who cared more about noise than precision. She had learned long ago that observation revealed more than participation ever could. The elevator chimed softly as David Park stepped into the lobby. TechVision CEO had been in the building for the last 20 minutes, observing the crisis resolution from the mezzanine level. He approached Marcus and Rebecca with purposeful strides. "Excuse me," he said, extending his hand to Marcus. "I'm David Park, CEO of TechVision. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with Meridian Industries." Marcus stood, shaking the offer hand. "Marcus Chun, I apologize if I caused any disruption." "Disruption?" David laughed. "You just demonstrated more operational expertise in 15 minutes than most consultants show in weeks." "Rebecca, is this the candidate you interviewed today?" Rebecca nodded, her embarrassment evident. "Yes, and I'm afraid I didn't conduct myself very professionally." David studied Marcus with the keen eye of someone who had built his company by recognizing talent. "Mr. Chun, what would it take to bring you to TechVision as our Vice President of Operations?" Marcus blinked, certain he had misheard. "I'm sorry. We've been searching for someone with your exact skill set for 6 months," David continued. "International experience, crisis management capabilities, multilingual communication skills, and clearly the technical knowledge to design and troubleshoot complex systems." The lobby fell silent. Rebecca watched as David Park offered Marcus the position she had dismissed him for, but 3 levels higher and undoubtedly with significantly better compensation. Marcus looked between David and Rebecca, processing the unexpected turn of events. "Mr. Park, I appreciate the offer, but I should mention that I have a young daughter who requires significant attention. My schedule needs to accommodate her needs." David smiled. "Mr. Chun, any company worth working for understands that dedicated parents make dedicated employees. We offer flexible scheduling, excellent health care, and a child care assistance program." The weight of 18 months lifted from Marcus's shoulders. He thought of Emma, probably still feverish but brave, waiting for him to return home. This opportunity would provide the stability she deserved. "I would be honored to accept the position," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Excellent," David replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Rebecca will handle the details. When can you start?" "I need to give my current employer 2 weeks' notice," Marcus said. Even for janitorial work, professionalism mattered to him. 2 weeks it is, David agreed. "Welcome to TechVision." As David departed, Rebecca approached Marcus one final time. "Mr. Chun, I want to personally apologize for my behavior today. I learned a valuable lesson about making assumptions." Marcus nodded graciously. "We all have preconceptions, Mrs. Torres. Thank you for the opportunity to prove myself." If this story inspired you, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, or if you've ever witnessed someone's hidden talents being revealed in an unexpected moment.